Good Monday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. The Browns back at work after the weekend off, having won against the Steelers to improve to 2-1 on the young season. On Thursday night, they beat the Steelers. Some news out of Berea. Browns back on the field and practicing, at least most of them. Joel Bitonio, J-O-K, on bikes, not seen on the field. Jadeveon Clowney and Taven Bryant did not practice. Kevin Stefanski said he could not rule anybody out at this point in time. Would have to wait until Wednesday before we get updates on JOK, Clowney, and Taven Bryant. Let's welcome in G. Bush. He is the host of the Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan, Saturdays from 8 until noon. Also co-host of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. G. Bush, I don't know about you, but I think Clowney has been missed defensively a great deal. From the time he went out against the Jets through the Steelers game, there just wasn't the same pressure defensively, at least in my opinion.
Like when Myles Garrett had guys like Emmanuel Ogbah, who obviously, actually be truthful, played better after he left Cleveland than he did when he was here. But, you know, it's back to that thing where, you know, a lot of people saying when you're watching, Myles Garrett play, they're saying, well, where's the pop? Where's the plays? We needed to stop. We couldn't get it. And I try to tell people it's very difficult to equate just how difficult it is to get off blocks when you're seeing an initial block from a tackle. You're always going to get the tight end to your side. They had the running backs chipping him, and you're still supposed to be a guy that's going to stop the run from the outside as well as get pressure. It's just way too difficult. I think sometimes Jadeveon Clowney is a guy that they kind of get missed a little bit because, you know, he kind of doesn't get the same level of respect as a Myles Garrett, and Myles Garrett is a better player. But what Jadeveon Clowney gives you the ability to do is he's able to get inside. He's able to play the run. One of the better run defenders as a defensive end. Also, he gets those pressures. He may not get home, but it's just something that the team knows that you can't just sit him backside and just say we're going to block him single all the time with a tackle. So he gives you pressure, and sometimes he's going to run the quarterback right into a Myles Garrett. So he's a big part of what they want to do. And I think that when you see Jadeveon Clowney not being able to go, you kind of reminded of what the Cleveland Browns used to look like when they didn't have another defensive end that's as athletic as he is on the other side. And it would be a sight for sore eyes if we can get him back out there. I think this game is a winnable game against the Falcons, but I always would love to have him out there, especially when you're going against Marcus Mariota, who can use his legs, who can extend plays, and the read option is always available for them as well.
Yeah, I would agree. One thing that has been better than pretty much anybody thought it would be is quarterback play of Jacoby Brissett. Take a look at this from Mike Clay. The Browns are third in the NFL in offensive EPA, that is expected points added. And that's one of the metrics that you measure quarterbacks by. How well are they moving the offense? Only Miami and Kansas City are ahead of them. It's pretty impressive how well Kevin Stefanski and Jacoby Brissett have kind of gotten on the same page after that first week.
Man, it might be a little bit time to put some respect on Jacoby Brissett's name because there was a lot of people that was willing to throw dirt on him. We talked about Garoppolo. We talked about, and I'm not even saying everybody else. I thought you might even need to go look at Jimmy Garoppolo. And after the first game, and we saw what he did against the Panthers, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a long 11 games. This might be a rough one. But I'll tell you what, he's looked like a totally different quarterback the next two games. Played his tail off against the Jets. I thought he got into rhythm. I thought he was going to be – the Browns were going to be a beneficiary of how efficient he played against the Jets. Defense just let him down. Special teams let him down. But then he comes back, short week, and gets the Pittsburgh Steelers, who say what you want. They still have Cam Hayward. They still have Mike Tomlin. They're going to play the way they play. Minka Fitzpatrick and those boys, they're going to come out here and they're going to give you a game. And I thought he came out here and threw the ball with velocity. I didn't know he had an arm like that. He's putting the ball on people. And if you turn around and look at a couple of the drops, David Njoku got hit on the goal line when he went up and then kind of took his legs out. He dropped that one. There was also a drop by Amari Cooper late in the game that would have probably salted the game away, but he just threw it so hard that Amari Cooper didn't even know it was on him that quick. And then there's a play where Amari Cooper steps out of bounds. It's a long gain. He just went out of bounds, came back and touched illegal touching. But if you put those plays in there, he could have had close to a 300-yard game, and only maybe you got 3 to 4 balls that hit in the ground. That is amazing. He's playing well above where I thought he was, a lot of people thought he was. And if he's going to keep playing at this level, the Cleveland Browns, they have a chance to compete with whoever they got on that schedule.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. And we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Brissett's play.
Hey, this is Ron again from down here in Clayton, Ohio. I was calling the best show on Cleveland Browns football to say what a great game the Browns played last night. And I was just looking at Brissett. His quarterback play seems to fit the Browns so well. And, you know, if you needed a yard or 2 yards, you know, he's as big as a linebacker. He can get those plays for you. And what concerns me is I know we've got, like, the King's ransom tied up in Deshaun Watson. What happens when we get to that 11th game, Deshaun Watson comes back, and what if we are leading our division and right up there in the playoff hunt? Do you think the Browns will go ahead and pull Jacoby in favor of bringing in Deshaun Watson?
Absolutely. And I love all the voicemails, but it's not even a second thought. Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback immediately upon his availability.
Let me say, I try to give you an everyday analogy so people can understand the way this thing looks. So, you know, I was in 5th grade once, and I had a teacher named Mr. Lahote. And Mr. Lahote went out because he had to have surgery. He was out for like 3 months. So for that long period of time, we had to substitute. Her name was Miss Johnson. Now, Miss Johnson was a younger individual. She had just got out of college. She was doing her student teaching, and we loved her because she was kind of like our age. She would do things that we were like, oh, this is cool. Mr. Lahote never let us get that off, right? So you get used to it for 3 months, and you go back. But guess what? When that 3rd month hit, one day I get into class, and Mr. Lahote is sitting there ready to open his spelling book up, and I'm like, where Mrs. Johnson at? They're like, listen, there's a thing called FMLA, and I was on it. And I had leave and sick time. Mrs. Johnson is at another school doing day by day now again. There was no option for Miss Johnson to just come in and say, hey, but look at my standardized score test. My kids were learning. That's all good, Miss Johnson. Until you get a permanent position, that's the reason you are a fill-in. You'll be good in the future. Deshaun Watson is Mr. Lahote. And your man, Jacoby Brissett, is Miss Johnson. He knows what his role is, and he's going to be fine with teaching the class and then going on about his other business after the regular teacher gets there.
Yeah, without question. And you know what? Jacoby Brissett knows that as well as anybody. That's kind of what the life of a backup quarterback in the NFL is. You play well when you get the opportunity, and then when the regular guy comes back, that's what it is. This is impressive, too, though. Take a look. Jake Trotter tweets this out. QBR rankings after 3 weeks. Tua is first. I'm not sure how Lamar ends up second because he is tearing it up. Hurts is 6th. Jacoby Brissett is 9th, ahead of Kyler Murray, Tom Brady, Joe Burrow, and Baker Mayfield is down at 32. There are only 32 teams in the NFL.
Well, looks like some people were right. I think Baker's fully healthy. I don't think his labrum's hurt, or I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is there causing him to overthrow the ball in the stands. Well, it looks like some people were accurate on that. I'll say this: it is a small sample size. It is 3 games. But here's what I will say: if he go down and he play the same way against Atlanta, and he comes back and the team is 3-1. See, confidence is a funny thing. If you let a professional athlete get confident and comfortable, there's a lot of stuff they can do. We learned that from Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco got confident, and he was already comfortable because there was no pressure, and he threw up for 300 yards, right? The previous week, he threw for 300 yards, and they talked about, well, that's not going to happen. And I said, well, look, man, Jacoby Brissett has never played with this amount of characters. They always go to Miami. They always talk about Indianapolis. They didn't have no Amari Cooper over there. They don't have one of the best offensive lines in the game. They don't have two-headed monsters like Chubb and Hunt. They don't got that level of playmaker that they have on this Cleveland Browns offense. So when you look at his past performance, yeah, it's mediocre. And even his numbers then, he still didn't turn the ball over. He just wouldn't throw the ball downfield as much. Now he's playing with Kevin Stefanski, who is a master at keeping guys clean. He kept Baker clean. He made Baker look awesome. Some of those rollouts and throws he's able to do. But let's take a look at it. When he's lining up in 5 wide, there's nothing. I don't see any limitations. He's reading the field, finding guys, and he's throwing the ball with velocity and accuracy. So for me, if he comes out again against Atlanta, you can't just say it's just Jacoby Brissett being Jacoby Brissett. Sometimes there's an anomaly. Sometimes there's guys that play above their head, but I think it's a combination of play calling, combination of the talent they got at the skill positions, and I think it's the fact that he's now playing with some confidence and he's getting used to having those luxury items around him, and now he's using them.
Yeah, confidence, all these guys in the NFL can play. You get a little bit of confidence and it elevates play even more. All right, we're going to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason before we go to break. This one about one of the Browns wide receivers.
How you doing, guys? This is Ellis in Orlando. It seems to me the Browns have lost total confidence in Andrew Schwartz. And sometimes it only seems like we only have one wide receiver on the field. Like when they do throw to Donovan Peoples-Jones, it's like once, and that's it. Why keep Schwartz around if they're not going to use him? Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work. Cleveland till the casket drops.
Always appreciate all the voicemails. G. Bush, he's not going to be a high-volume guy. That's not what they got Anthony Schwartz for. They got Anthony Schwartz to keep the defense honest. You want to cheat up, we're going to send him deep. We want to get the ball in his hands. He's going to get 3 or 4 touches. And he's going to have to earn them. He's got to play a little bit better and do something with those touches when he gets them. But the skill set he brings, they're going to keep around for a while.
Yeah. First of all, let me get to hey, Ellis. Shout out to Ellis in Orlando. Had a surgery the other week ago. He's moving around. One of the biggest Browns fan. I'm a big fan of Ellis. Now, as far as Anthony Schwartz goes, he's been on the milk box lately. We have not seen him. And the reason you have not seen him is because of this. When you're playing the way that the Browns want to play, you can either be the catalyst, you can either get in what everybody else is doing, and this machine can move up and down the field. But it has to be systematic. It has to be strategic. And the thing that you can't have is being behind the sticks. If you notice the way the Browns have played the last 2 weeks, they don't have a lot of 3rd and 10s. They don't have a lot of 3rd and long, 3rd and 13s and all of those. Because you know what? When they're throwing the ball to the guys, even if you're looking at maybe a 1 or 2 yard catch or a 3 yard catch that you got to run afterwards, they're still catching those footballs. You can't go play action 2nd and 9 and you hit Schwartz for 5-6 yards and he drops the football. Now you're 3rd and 9, and that's not where you want to be. You always want to be in striking distance when you call in plays that the defense doesn't know either I'm running or I'm passing. You always want that two-way go. And Schwartz is just, at this point, he's not, you can't depend on him. Like, he's not reliable enough for you to say, if I throw him this ball, if I go through my progressions and hit him, is he going to catch it? Or even on, reverses. Like, you want a lot of people, when you get that reverse, you want to hit north and south. He does a lot of east and west stuff, and he just needs more polishing. I think a lot of people fail to realize that the offense that they run in Auburn is pretty much a it's a spread stuff with a lot of orbit motion, but it's predicated on running, jet sweeps and different things like that. It's a running offense. So even though he was a receiver, his big plays coming out of Auburn came on reverses, and not even really in the punt return game, because he doesn't, I wouldn't trust him to catch the ball with people bearing down on him and getting upfield and getting 5 or 10 yards. So now, to me, you saw him on special teams a little bit, running down on the kickoff team and being a gunner. I think that for him, he's going to have to work his way back into this rotation, because he's not in the rotation right now. It's David Bell, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and the number 1 target or number 2 target is David Njoku at this point.
Yep. He's going to have to earn those targets and those snaps. G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we will continue talking Browns. We'll look a little bit at the Falcons' next opponent for the Browns. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns defense.
How y'all doing? This E.T. calling again. Fresh off of win over Pittsburgh, the defense still got to play a little bit better. I didn't like the way they was playing. They wouldn't get not that much pressure on Trubisky. And the special teams, man, they got to be running some laps, man. Special teams got to get together. Overall, we got the dub. We just moving on to Atlanta. Let's not take Atlanta for granted like we did the Jets. Let's get this dub and move on 3-1. Anthony Walker get healthy. We lost him for the season. Hope he get well soon. Overall, I'm kind of more optimistic going further in the season. Do you guys think that this team could be like the Philadelphia Eagles were, just reversed? Let's have our backup quarterback carry us to some good wins and then turn it over to our starting quarterback and possibly go on a Super Bowl run. I'm not predicting the Super Bowl, but I'm just saying it's a possibility. This NFL, every game is sudden death. Every game is game 7.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. G. Bush, Deshaun Watson will bring a different dynamic, but the thing that I like that he said, you can't overlook the Falcons. You got Mariota. We've talked about him. He's kind of mobile, can be a threat. Pitts and Drake London are big targets, and Cordell Patterson is a guy that is creating all kinds of issues running the football.
Yeah, Cordell Patterson is just, I'll give him credit. I will give Atlanta credit, and I'll give even, I think, the Vikings before him. How many times have you seen a guy and a coach just can't really get him the football, right? You can't really, so what do? You put him at kickoff. You could put him at punt return. And so Cordell Patterson was one of the better, kick returner, punt returners in this league. And then somebody had a bright idea and said, listen, if he can find gaps and spaces and have the reaction time enough to move and elude defenders, running at that high of a pace on kickoffs and punt returns, why don't we throw him in the backfield, right? And he doesn't fit the mold of a traditional running back. He's tall. He looks like a receiver. He has the body type of a receiver. But now that he has now got enough carries and touches, you can kind of see how he's fitting back into that mold. He's actually more comfortable running the football, and I think he's having his best year as a pro. You take a look at some of the cuts he's making. His vision has gotten better. Obviously, he can still catch the ball out of the backfield, But if you add that with Kyle Pitts, who is probably one of the, I'd say the most athletic tight end, running 4-4 playing tight end. He's more of a glorified receiver, mismatch that he could play with. And then the kid Drake London out of USC is he just keeps progressing. They're throwing him the ball more. He scored against Seattle. So he's a guy that they're really looking to target. So they look like they have a couple of things here. They have some opportunities and ways that they can score the football. And unfortunately for the Browns, their defense is probably one of the things that we would say point to, especially in getting pressure and busting in the back end. Those are things that we worry about the most. So if you're going into that dome, you're going into the on that turf, a lot of things can happen. I think the Browns need to worry about and concentrate on some of those weapons that they have, because they can put points on the board.
Yeah, and to your point about Cordell Patterson, this is from Pro Football Reference. Most rushing yards through week 3. Nick Chubb is number 1 at 341. Cordell Patterson is number 2 at 302, ahead of Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey,
wow,
and Lamar Jackson. But that's how good he is. And you touch on it. He runs upright, but you end up looking at it, and he ends up 100 yards, and he usually finds the end zone.
That's I think that's that's a compliment to their coaching staff. Like, how many coaches would overthink stuff? Like, oh, we can't put him in at running back. Come on, that doesn't make sense. Come on, you guys are crazy. I always commend coaches who are innovative. They take what they have. They take the ingredients that they have in the kitchen and they use it to their best to make the best meal that they can. You may not have all of the USDA prime beef. You may not have that. You may not have a bunch of other things, but what you do have is you can take some canned goods and some meat, and if you cook it right and put it in a crock pot long enough, you'll get something. And for with the Falcons, I think they've matriculated and they've kind of rotated some things, and they found something, and they just continue to go to it. I do think the Browns will have a better opportunity to corral him, given the fact that they do have guys that can get up, especially if they can get Clowney back. One thing that the Browns has is a lot of speed. You look at Phillips, who is going to take over as the signal caller for Anthony Walker, who has a lot of speed. He had a great game last week. JOK, he has a growing injury, but when he gets back, he was grading as one of the best linebackers and has that level of speed as well. So, the Browns have what it takes to combat it. It's just all about being on the same page, making sure that you can tackle these guys, get them down, and then turn the ball over to the offense, because, defensively, I don't think they can have anything for Chubb and Hunt. I don't think they ain't got nothing for that.
Yeah, their defense is definitely not great. All right, let's take a look at the ESPN's Football Power Index. So the Browns, according to the FPI, now have a 37.6 chance of making the playoffs, 10th best odds in the AFC, ahead of the Raiders, Patriots, Titans, and Steelers. It's important to note, G. Bush, the Dolphins are the only 3-0 team in the AFC. Browns are one of 6 teams that are now 2-1. It just goes to show you how bunched together all those teams in the AFC are.
I was just talking about this on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, man. I was saying, look, this is as close as people have been in a long period of time. These guys are really close into the gap between the haves and the have-nots. There's only a couple plays that are really separating these teams, right? You look at Kansas City losing to Indianapolis. You look at what the Dolphins have been able to do, coming back from 30, I guess it's 21 points in the fourth quarter almost against the Ravens on the road. You look at those teams. The Dolphins were able to beat the Bills. The Bills couldn't get the ball off at the end of the game. Look at all of these teams that are around the same place. The Chargers, they've lost to the Chiefs already. The Chargers go out there and take an L as well. So my thing is, when you look at the schedule, sometimes when we play the schedule game, what we're not taking in consideration is there's always going to be a team that you thought was good that's not going to be good, and this team that you thought was bad is going to be way better than you thought. So the schedule evolves around the middle of the season. Around 8-9 games, teams start to now show up and say, okay, well, they're for real or they're not for real. And even when you think they are for real, take a look at some of the injuries you got to quarterbacks. Mac Jones, he has a severe high ankle sprain. that looks like, well, is he going to be back by the time he play the Browns? I don't know. You take a look at Justin Herbert. He has severe injured ribs. Is he going to be ready to go? I don't know. So now you start to look at the injuries, and especially if you get them to quarterbacks, that changes the outlook of the season like that. So everything is up for a debate here. It's way too early to even talk about playoffs. The Browns just got to keep going out there and beating teams that they should beat and staying competitive and doing it 1 week at a time.
G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We will continue talking Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with G. Bush, host of the Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan, from 8 until noon on Saturdays. Also the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 11 until 1 on YouTube. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the Browns head coach.
Hi, this is Rico. I'm just calling in to give Stefanski some love. You know, after all the turmoil this offseason, mainly from the Browns' own doing, he has his team looking to go 3-1 for the third straight season potentially. And so far, he has Jacoby playing like a top 15 QB and his offense performing at an elite level. He is the only coach since we returned to beat the Steelers 3 times, and overall, he's 3-3 against them. One thing in common with all the great coaches is that they all had great QBs. So I want to see him get his chance with Watson.
G. Bush, I can't disagree with any of that. I think the offense should go to a different level once Deshaun Watson comes back, and I think it will.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what it is. You know, the offense is what it is right now, and I'm looking at it from a standpoint. I think Browns fans, you're just now starting to see what competent quarterback play look like, right? It's refreshing to see people wide open. It's refreshing to see guys catch the rock. It's refreshing to say, wow, man, we're being consistent and we're handing the ball to Nick Chubb and we're giving an opportunity to Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb to be in the backfield at the same time. And so what you're seeing is people are marveling at it because we haven't had that. We've seen some peaks, some exciting moments with Baker, but some of the routine stuff, the routine throws that you got to have to win games just weren't there from week to week. So now, if you could go ahead and fast forward to when you get Deshaun Watson here, I'm going to be interested in seeing one thing. What is the evolution of the offense? Because right now, I've always said for some people, it's easier having less talent because you know who you are, right? If you got somebody who's less talented and you know they bring a certain skill set, you can maximize that certain skill set. But when you got a person that can throw, that can run, that can extend plays, that can improvise, that can, do all these other things, now it's a little more of a difficult thing. And you look at it, when Deshaun Watson gets here, now it's like, okay, I could always just say I'm going to hand the ball to Nick Chubb. Now you got this nice shiny Lamborghini back there. You're like, well, I got to at least put that on the road before the winter hit. I got to drive it once or twice before, God forbid, I live in Ohio. I got to get that puppy on the road a few more times. And so then you might get to a point where you're like, well, what is our identity? Is our identity that got us here to be 7-4 and in my mind, like pie in the sky 8-3? You looking at like, well, how do we get there? Well, you got there through the play action game. You got through Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and doing that thing. But I think Kevin Stefanski is smart enough to do it. And I think really talented players make it easy for coaches to do that. Because even some of the stuff he's going to ask him to do that are rudimentary, he'll be able to do that at a high level. And some of the stuff that he may think is difficult, he'll learn really quickly when the bullets start flying. Oh, this guy's special. And now you can really open that thing up. And I've always said, if you got Deshaun Watson, Kareem Hunt, and Nick Chubb in the backfield, good luck. I don't know what you plan on, who you plan on tackling, because they could run anything. I don't know.
So take a look at this. This is NFL offenses converting to new series of downs. It's a graph from Timo Risquet from Twitter. NFL average is 71%. Leading is the Bills at 82%. So the green is first down, getting it, converting. The blue is second, and the orange is third. Browns are checking in at fifth with Jacoby Brissett as their quarterback. 77%. They're converting a new series of downs, and you see pretty successful on among them the most successful on third downs. NFL average in that is 71%. So what it shows you is the run game is really setting it up. You saw that, and Jacoby Brissett is able to make the plays he needs to. That's all they're asking. They're not asking him to go out and do anything other than make the plays that are there.
And I think you see it in that chart where you could identify, you could break down is not only are they really good on third down, they're really good on, second down. And that means that, that tells me that you are in really vague and obscure downs and distances. Like if you're at 2nd and 3, you can run the ball and pick up the first down, or you could take a shot. Or, if it's 2nd and 4, like when you're dealing with those manageable downs and distance, what it does, it can set you up to a point where you can start to take 3rd and 1 shot plays. Because here's the thing, he's going to go for it. Now, I think you see that in that graph too. He's already going to go for it a disproportionate amount of times on 4th down. Like, he's just going to go for it, especially, and now that you have Jacoby Brissett, who in his lifetime, I think he's only missed one quarterback sneak when it was a 4th and 1. So now he has one of those guys who is like a Tom Brady that's going to get that quarterback sneak at 4th and 1. You can hand the ball to your running backs who are monsters at 4th and 1. So he has a lot of different ways he could do on 4th down to actually go for it. So that makes 3rd down that much more devastating for defenses, because you see in the game against the Steelers, the shot play that he actually got that was wide open to Amari Cooper over the middle of the field, that was on the 3rd and 1. And at that point in time, if you're the Steelers and you've been beat upside the head with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb all that time, you have to sell out for that. Like, they did what they were supposed to. So that's why it makes it very important that you stay within those regions that you can run, you can pass, you can set screens up, you can do all of that. And that's why they need their receivers to catch the football, even if it's for 3 or 4 yards.
All right, before we head to break, obviously the injury to Anthony Walker, it's tough. The Browns were counting on him. He's a captain. So there's a chance they could look to add to that linebacking core. This is from Dog Pound Daily. 3 free agents the Browns could target at linebacker. Number 3, Malcolm Smith. Again, that's a guy that's been here. Number 2, Reggie Ragland, interesting name, out of Alabama. Didn't realize he's still out there. And then number 1, Joe Schobert, a guy that was another former Brown. What are your thoughts? At this point in time, I think they're pretty happy with the guys they have. I think they like Jacob Phillips. I don't want to discount that, but I think they like what they have in the linebacking core.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult for linebackers. Because, now these guys are going to be counted on, especially, Jacob Phillips is wearing the green dot, which basically means he's going to call the defense and get guys lined up. If you haven't been in this defense and we've already had these mishaps where people not lined up correctly or they don't know what their assignment is, we've already had that with people that's been in the system since day one. These guys been in that system 2 years. I think it's kind of difficult to have somebody who is as important as a signal caller in the middle of the defense to come off the street and just expect that they're going to just, get it without a hitch. I like what the reserves did. And one of the guys that I think, along with Phillips, that I think does a really solid job of is Taki. He's not going to wow you with anything, but consistently he's in the right spots. He can make tackles. We've seen him be able to make a play on the football and get interceptions. I think Taki plays hard. I think he's good on special teams. I think they like what they have. You got Phillips and him. JOK is still in that mix. You saw Fields make a tackle. A guy out of West Virginia. He's another one of those hybrid type guys. Now, if another one of them, like a JOK, God forbid, goes down, yeah, then at that point, I think they would look to upgrade the position just because from a standpoint of putting the roster together, you would need somebody. And I think they would go after a linebacker. Those guys don't really command too much money, especially in bringing them in halfway through the season. So, yeah, I think they liked what they got. And this is what you will see, barring any catastrophic injuries.
G. Bush and I are going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention to the Guardians, the American League Central Division champs. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to Sports4CLE. We turn our attention to the Cleveland Guardians, the American League Central Division champions, now getting ready for the Wild Card Series. Take a look at this graph. When you look at it, it shows you the probabilities of the Guardians' chances of winning the American League Central. Back on July 13th, right around the All-Star break, they were given a 9.1% chance of winning the division. Then it went up, and then it went back down, and then again, less than 42, I think it was 40% chance at the beginning of September, this month, 3 weeks ago. And they end up clinching it yesterday, and they are the American League Central Division champs. And G. Bush, they played so many young guys. It's it's credit to the organization. Everybody was beating them up for not going out and getting veterans, and they wanted to see what they had, and what they had was good enough to win the Central this year.
They always do this to us. They always do it. We be criticizing them, and I'll be the first one lining up. Be like, y'all didn't do. Why are you not going out to get anybody? Why did you trade this? But here's the thing. They gonna actually stop trading with the Guardians, because every time they go trade a big name person, they're getting back bona fide all-stars. They win every trade. It's crazy. Like Lindor had a great year, but look what they got back in return. They got an all-star in return, and on top of that, they got farm. I was talking to Jason Lloyd of The Athletic today. He said, "Hey, G. Bush, the messed up part about it is their best prospects is still in the minors. They have not even brought up all their talent yet, and still we are here, and they have won the Central." I'll give him credit, man. You look at what they're doing in other cities, Kansas City and Detroit. Those guys low-key lost their jobs because of what the front office for the Guardians can do. They're like, y'all got all this money to use. They payroll is minimal to none, and they're consistently churning out. They find pitchers out of nowhere. They one of the things about the Guardians that we thought was, they couldn't find any outfielders. We were like, we need a right fielder left. They found Quan. He's a guy who I didn't expect too much of, but they've consistently done those things. And they got Jose Ramirez to take less money. So they've overall, to me, I think their season came together when Bieber started throwing what more velocity, because I thought he was finished. His velocity was down. He was not looking like himself. And I said they need to hang their hat on that. But they rebounded with that. Tristan McKenzie's been pitching his tail off. And I'll tell you what, they got the best bullpen in the baseball moving right now, especially with having one of the better closers. So for me, this is a great opportunity for the Guardians to actually establish themselves. And they talk about attendance all the time. If they can win one series, I'm telling you, they'll get some new people behind them because I believe they lost their last eight games in the playoffs. They got swept a couple years ago last time they were there. If they can get to the divisional round, I think that they can have a nice bump in attendance in terms of people and interest with this team.
Yeah, and you know what? They're going to be they're the kind of team that you just don't want to deal with because they put pressure on you. You know, they don't strike out. They put the ball in play. Their pitchers throw strikes. Now, they got to play from the lead because they're not going to score 4 and 5 runs at a clip because they got to string hits together usually. But they're a team that can be just kind of a pain to a higher seed.
Nobody want to play them. No one wants to play them because they'll steal bases. They're going to be great defensively. They're going to be scrappy. They're not going to give up. And they do something. You said something that was very important. I almost did it. When the Guardians are playing with a lead, it's very difficult because it reminds you what they used to have with Miller. You start counting down to like the 5th inning. And you say, well, listen, we get to 6th inning and we ain't got no runs and the sticks ain't going down. You start counting down. I only got one more at bat. You might have one possible at bat. But after that, if they up 3 runs, now you get tight. You're not swinging freely at the plate, and they can really put the vice grip on you because if you do put the ball in play, they are one of the better defensive teams. So there's not a lot of gaps out there to find. So, yeah, they're a team no one wants to play, given their pitching, and Tito's going to make the right moves. He's going to make a lot of moves that is going to be advantageous to his team, and especially in tough spots.
G. Bush, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Good stuff. Thanks very much, G. Bush.
Appreciate you. Glad to be back. All
right, G. Bush, make sure you catch him. He is host of the Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan from 8 till noon on Saturday. You can also catch him, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, 11 until 1, Monday through Friday on YouTube. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Cavs Media Day today. We'll talk to Sam Amico from hoopswire.com straight ahead on Sports4CLE. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Cavs held Media Day today. Kobe Altman was talked to about the expectations for this team now that they really have a big 4 with the addition of Donovan Mitchell. Here's Kobe Altman.
This year is not contention or bust at all. We're still a very young group, and we're gaining experience. I think we played 84 games last year. We most certainly want to play more than 84 this year. But this is a runway, I think, that we have here with multiple years, with guys under contract for the foreseeable future. We want to grow, and we want to add more playoff experience and build towards something. But you have not seen Darius yet in his prime. What does that look like? What does the internal growth look like for Evan Mobley? Jared Allen's still 24 years old. This group, we have continuity. I think we've added maybe 4 new faces this offseason, so we do have a level of continuity, but we added a really big piece. And so that's going to take time. There's going to be some failures there, but this group is really excited to play with each other, and I want to grow this thing over the course of a few seasons before we start talking about that. With that said, we're not going to put a ceiling on what this team can do currently.
And with that, let's welcome in Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. So, Sam, you were out at Media Day. What about that? The whole thought that you have 4 guys that by all accounts could be all-stars, and they're pretty much all still ascending.
Yeah, well, still rosy future for sure. But the nice thing is that the Cavs are kind of focused, they're very focused on how far and how well they can do this season. You know, so hear about teams with promising futures, but that's all it is a promising future. Well, the Cavs have promising here and now, they believe, obviously with the arrival of Donovan Mitchell, the emergence of Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and, you know, probably maybe secretly most excited about Evan Mobley as well. So there are a lot of reasons for excitement, a lot of buzz, and, you know, Coach J.B. Bickerstaff has kind of alluded, now we got to figure out how this is all going to work on the court. Looks great on paper, but we just have to do a little bit of adjusting with the arrival of Mitchell. And along with those things and those big names, obviously very excited about the depth. A lot of veterans with Karis LeVert, Kevin Love, Isaac Okoro, you know, Robin Lopez, a newcomer, Raul Neto, and Cedi Osman as well. So there's just a lot of reasons for not only excitement, but reasons to believe this is a team that could potentially make some noise in the playoffs as well.
Let's take a listen. J.B. Bickerstaff talked about kind of adding Donovan Mitchell to that mix and what it might mean in terms of on the basketball court, what it would look like.
It's obvious what he brings to the table. And again, going through some of the situations that we went through last year, you know, in some of the bigger games, you know, the play-in series, you know, understanding a need of guys who can beat their man and create their own. And Donovan is elite at that. You know, having a guy who's still, you know, relatively the same age as our group and our core, but a guy who has a ton of experience. And you think about how many players, you know, numbers increase in the playoffs the way that Donovan's do, and, you know, increase from 25 points a game. It's not like it's, you know, 10 to 11. Like, for him to take that step in big moments, we're going to face those moments and be able to rely on him as well.
Sam, is that something maybe some people are overlooking about Mitchell, is how good he has been when given the opportunity to play in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do overlook that. You know, and it's funny, that's one of the first things when I'm covering a trade or see anything in a trade is, okay, how did this guy perform, you know, when on the biggest stage? And in Donovan Mitchell, he always was able to raise his game, not just his scoring average, which did go up from regular season to playoffs. And like JB said, it's not just like he's averaging 10 points in the regular season. It goes up. He's averaging 25, and then he goes up to 28 or so in the playoffs. But it's also just really, you know, and that's really what the Cavs kind of were lacking a little bit, was a star who had been in those kind of big situations, playoff situations, because it's a different game between the regular season and the playoffs. And, you know, when he came right away, you got a sense like, okay, you know, this is a team that really wants to do something, get to the playoffs and do something when there, because they just went out and got a 3-time All-Star who's a better player in the playoffs than he is in the regular season. That's not always the case. That's not usually the case, guys. You know, just because of the nature of playoff basketball, game kind of slows down. It gets a little more physical. Their games tend to take a little bit of a step back. But with Mitchell, he's just so athletic and seems to increase his intensity at the most important part of either most important game or most important part of the year. Has proven time and time again that he's been able to do that. So, you know, that's a big addition to guys like Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, who haven't been in a playoff series yet. And to have a guy who has that experience that's still young, that's quite an addition for the Cavs.
We're talking to Sam Amico from hoopswire.com from Cavs Media Day. Sam, is it the right message because this core is so young to not put those expectations on them right away? You kind of heard Kobe Altman has tamped them down, even J.B. Bickerstaff to a certain extent. Is that by design, do you think, because they are young?
Yeah, you have to be realistic about the situation. You look at teams like Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Boston, which has some drama going on, but at the same time still has all the players back and added Malcolm Brogdon to a team that went to the finals last year. You know, Miami, we're talking about right there's 4 really veteran teams. And you know, you look at the history of the playoffs, Dave, there's young teams don't tend to really get real far in the playoffs because they're young, you know, and veteran teams are usually the teams to beat, the teams that rise in the playoffs. So yeah, you have to be realistic about things and say, look, if we win more than a couple playoff rounds this year with this young roster, young core, then it's going to be a surprise. The key here is to win a lot of games, learn to win a lot of games, get into the playoffs, get that experience for all of our guys. And look, you know, we're still in our early 20s, our core, right? So we've got a ways to go theoretically, and you're young enough and you get that playoff experience, you are able to build off that. Typically teams, you know, they get in the playoffs, they lose the first round, next year they win a round, year after that, maybe they get to the final. So, you know, here there's no real plan like that, but that's usually how it plays out. So it's smart for Kobe and JB to say, look, we've got some learning, we got a learning curve here still, and but in the meantime, we're going to play a lot of exciting basketball, and we're going to be competitive, and probably within a year or so, we're going to be contenders.
It's kind of interesting as well. You listen to Darius Garland. He talked about playing alongside Donovan Mitchell, and it may mean, and it likely means, he'll take less shots. Darius Garland seems more than happy with the addition of Donovan Mitchell.
Donovan, he attracts so much to the defense, so when he's driving or when he gets going, people's going to start over-helping, so that's when his teammates get involved. That's when they get open shots or they free up to make somebody else get an open shot. So Donovan has that effect on defense when he was in Utah. And, I mean, with the talent that we have this year, I think it's going to be a lot more easy for him and teammates to get open shots.
So, again, he should open the floor up for a lot of players.
Yeah, and you look at Darius Garland last year with situations with Colin Sexton out, Ricky Rubio out. For a while, Karis LeVert, who they got for Ricky Rubio, was out, and just so much of the backcourt scoring it all had to be Darius Garland, you know, and that's a lot to ask of a guy, and that makes his life that much more difficult, right? Because now he's getting double teamed and triple teamed. Guys are forcing him to either pass the ball or take really difficult shots because you can key in on him. You know, try that this year with Donovan Mitchell next to him. It's going to be a different story. So I think that's one big reason for excitement is you have a guy who made the All-Star team in Darius Garland coming back with another All-Star next to him. That naturally is going to make his job a lot easier.
Sam Amico and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll continue talking Cavs. Head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. We'll also hear from Evan Mobley. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back talking Cavs from Cavs Media Day with Sam Amico.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Cavs with Sam Amico from hoopswire.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about this year's Cavs team.
I hear Tom said that Cavs not a top 4. Remember they was number 2 last year. Then they started having injuries. I think they top 5 for right now. I'd like to hear your compliment.
All right, as always, appreciate all the voicemails. Sam Amico, hoopswire.com. What do you think when you look at the grand scape? And I think they were third in the East when all the injuries kind of overloaded them late in the year. When you look at this, realistically, where are the Cavs?
That's a very good voicemail because there's a lot of truth to that. They were, before those injuries struck, they were third or fourth in the East, battling for the spot. There was times that they were two, and you really, if you're going to base things on the way things were last year and assume that they're even better this year with good health, who's to say they can't finish in the top four, get a home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs? There's no reason that the Cavs can't do that. Again, we talk about Milwaukee and Miami and Boston and Philly. Maybe Brooklyn gets its act together. That team is obviously stacked. There's 5 teams right there. But things don't always go as planned, and that's one thing that you have to consider. So if you're the Cavs, you don't really have to worry about doing anything or what anybody else is doing, but do your thing and defend like you did last season. Get what you can out of, your bench and ride the core. You certainly splashing with talent here at Media Day. Look, Dave, there's no reason that this team can't finish in the top 3 in the Eastern Conference. You just have to, you got to look at these other veteran teams as more realistic, but this team has that type of talent, that type of depth, that they are certainly in the mix to finish, to me, in the top 3 or 4 in the East.
Yeah, and the guy that alluded to it was Kobe Altman. Who knows how good Evan Mobley is going to be in his second year? How much of a jump is Darius Garland going to take? How much of a jump is Jared Allen? There are guys that are ascending, so it's a little bit of an unknown, but all good stuff. Everybody's been raving about Evan Mobley. Take a listen to Evan Mobley talking about what he worked on.
Really just trying to get bigger, stronger, maintain my health throughout the year, as well as really working on my outside shooting, face-up game as well, and also getting the rebound and pushing it off the break.
For you individually, what are you hoping to accomplish in year 2?
I just want to win. I think our whole team is just trying to win. I feel like we didn't go to our full capacity last year, and I feel like we got a lot to prove this year. So.
And Sam, you can tell he's bigger. He's bigger, and he spent a lot of time in the weight room. He did not have the definition that he has right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no question about it that he hit the weights this offseason. That was one of the things that the Cavs wanted him to do, and he wanted to do for himself. And I think he's probably just gotten bigger just because he's getting a little bit older. He's filling out a little bit more. So, we forget sometimes how young these guys are, but they still have some room to grow physically. Look, he's going to be the player he was, which is very efficient player, very heady, obviously extremely skilled. But now he's got a little bit more size to him, which will give him a little bit more durability. Obviously, in a league like the NBA, where durability and strength and staying healthy is a big part of it. So, like you said, and like Kobe Altman said, the sky's the limit for not just him, but obviously guys like Garland and Mitchell and Jared Allen, all guys who are very young. And, you put all that together and you throw in the veterans, that's why you think you have so much promise.
All right, before I let you go, this is from ESPN, what to watch at training camp for each and every one of the NBA teams. And for the Cavs, it is who will be the starting small forward? Your thoughts on that and how they sort it out? I mean, that's $1 million question. 4 of the guys that are probably going to be on the floor.
Right, yeah, that's you keep hearing me bring up the same 4 guys over and over again, and there's a reason why, because I don't know who number 5 is, and I don't think the Cavs know at this point either who it will be either. But obviously, guys in play, Isaac Okoro, look, he's been okay his first 2 years. He's going to have to take a step up this season if he really wants to lock down the starting role as your small forward. Karis LeVert obviously didn't get a full training camp with the Cavs last year, came over in the Ricky Rubio trade. He's a guy who's capable of erupting for 40 points too. I mean, they just have so much firepower. Do you want to bring him off the bench for that reason? Maybe not. Maybe you start him, and now you have, Mitchell, Garland, and LeVert, who, by the way, scored 40 points in his final game as an Indiana Pacer. And I think has scored 40 against the Cavs in the past. So, I mean, he's very capable. I think it's going to come down to one of those two guys. We've heard names like Dean Wade, just to give the Cavs some size starting. But it's really not going to matter, because what matters is, coaches always say it's not who starts the game, it's who finishes. And I think that you're going to see the four guys in Mitchell and Garland and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley out there, obviously, to finish the game. The fifth could be a situational player, depending on matchups. It could be Wade, it could be Jetty, it could be Kevin Love, and it could be Karis LeVert or Isaac Okoro. So I think that they have a training camp battle going on for that fifth spot for sure, and JB's going to figure out what he wants from that position in determining who's going to start at quote-unquote small forward.
Sam Amico from hoopswire.com, thanks so much for taking the time and staying out late at Cavs Media Day to join us. Sam, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. I think they're about ready to throw me out, so we just made it.
Sam Amico, make sure you check him out, hoopswire.com. All things Cavs as well as the entire NBA. Does some great stuff, giving us some insight on Cavs at Media Day. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.